Welcome everybody to Let's Talk About It. A podcast is a platform for real talk, real people, real topics, real conversations. If you're watching me on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. Please definitely hit that like button, hit that notification button. When every episode comes out, you will know about it automatically. If you're listening to us on audio, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, hit that like button, hit that download button. The more downloads I have, it puts me to a bigger algorithm. I appreciate all the support I've had. Thank you so much. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna have a conversation today. I'm gonna bring on a person who is a spiritual guy. He is a retreat leader. This person builds safe spaces for the LGBTQ communities and their allies, such as camps and retreats. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Juno Lux today. Juno, how are you doing today?
Hi, thank you for the wonderful introduction. I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I know today is Monday, so how's your Monday so far?
Blessed. I've never had a bad day, I like to say. I started my Monday with going to a Reiki share with one of my friends. I'm visiting down in Florida right now. And then after that, I came home and I made a little egg for myself because I needed some kind of protein to ground me. I was so out in the ether that I had to have some protein, and I'm feeling grounded and ready for this. So ready.
Hey, protein is that's the best thing for everybody. Juno, but before we get into your journey, I asked you off air. You said you identify as queer. Am I correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Now I want to read the audience what they wrote down for this term, what this really means, and you tell me if this is the exact term for this or not. It says queer is a term used to describe sexual orientations and gender identities that are not exclusively heterosexual. Is that the right definition for it?
Yeah, I like queer because it used to be used as hate speech, kind of like the F slur today. That used to be queer used to be used that way. And it was later reclaimed. And I like the original meaning of queer, which just means weird or different. Okay. And I consider myself weird and different because I've never really fit into any molds that I was invited into growing up, let's say. And so, though generally, I guess people would look at me and go oh, he's gay, or because I generally prefer to be with male presenting people. I like queer just because it's more encompassing. And for me, more than anything, saying I'm queer is an act of solidarity for me. Just okay. When I say that I'm non-binary, that's an act of solidarity for me because I think we all have the divine masculine and the divine feminine in us. And it's really about the integration of those energies. So I think that though I am male presenting, I definitely possess both of those energies like everyone does. And I think that by exclusively living in either one of those archetypes, you kind of lessen the enormity of the experience that we get to experience on this planet that we call life.
I love it. I love it. I was watching your social medias. You're very active on there. You have some good stuff on there. You have heart. You have a heart for helping others on their self-discovery journey, healing, personal transformations. So, what happened in your life to get you to want to do that for other people? So, let's go back to the beginning. Why do you do the things you do on your social media?
So I've always been an advocate, and growing up, when I was in high school in the 90s, when it wasn't cool or cute to be gay, I was in theater because that's where queer kids went. They went to theater to kind of express themselves and be safe and explore with different things. And I'm sure that still happens very much today. But in high school, I remember asking my theater teacher, what do I have to do to be a leading role? Because I was always auditioning. I was always there. And she said to me, she goes, "Oh, you're too feminine to ever play a leading man." And so then I was like, "Oh, well, politely, you can go somewhere with that." And so
Wow.
I was like, okay. So then I was like, well, where do queer kids go when they're not getting the medicine they need in theater? So I was like, people that don't like theater should have a place to go. So back in my day, back in the old days, there wasn't a lot of openly gay groups and gatherings. And so I saw in New Jersey, there was this group called PFLAG, which is Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. but
Okay.
that wasn't something that you could necessarily host as like an after school program or like or during school program type thing.
Yeah.
So um, I saw that there was another group called a GSA, which is a Gay Straight Alliance, and I was like, that's what I want. I want allies. And so I made a meeting with the principal, and I was like, hi, I want to start a club in school. And they were like, what club do you want to start? And I said, I want to start a Gay Straight Alliance. And he was like, okay, well, if you want a Gay Straight Alliance, you have to find a teacher who's willing to be a supervisor for it,
Okay.
and you have to get 100 signatures. And I was like, okay, done. So I found teachers, I found students, I found anyone like that I would be like, can you sign my petition? Can you sign my petition? And I did find a faculty advisor, and I started the first like one of the first gay straight alliances in New Jersey. I want to say it was like maybe one of the first three. And I did that, and it still exists at my former high school today. And then when I was in college, this was before gay marriage was legal. Um, I was I volunteered with Lambda Legal and with the
Right.
Human Rights Campaign to have a domestic partnership passed,
Oh.
and that was successful. So like whoop. And then I was not part of the force that got it transitioned to gay marriage, but like I knew it was going to happen in my lifetime. So I was like, whatever, it's cool. Um, but so I've always been an advocate growing up, and I attribute a lot of that to the fact that I was brought up with a very strong belief in my family and in the system that I came from.
Okay.
And so that was a lot of people will be like, well, what gave you the courage to do that? Or what gave you the strength to do that? And it was just like my mother brought me up with the belief that like if you see a problem and no solution, be the solution. So
I love that right there, and I'm glad you mentioned about family because so when you was younger, when did you know you was like, what was that first time you knew you was different from everybody else, and you was, I guess, like attracted to like the opposite or to the male side, and
yeah.
how was your family support going through that?
So growing up, I was always like queer. I was always weird and different. Like that's why I like to use that word because like when I was a little kid, people would be like, "Hi, what's your name?" And I'd be like, "My name's Juno, and I'm a unicorn. You just can't see my horn right now." Like
Ah,
I was wild and out there. So like my family always knew that I was like different, and they just embraced it. So I'm very thankful for that. Um, and actually, like, funny story that's not so funny, maybe, but like touching.
okay, okay,
Um, so can I curse on this, by the way?
go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to tell you two coming out stories. One was in high school in 10th grade. And that was when this kid who's now passed away, so I don't care if I say his name was Chris. He was really rude to me, like, ever since 7th grade, like when we first met each other. He basically like called me every day. He would definitely call me like slurs every day. You can modify that.
Gotcha.
And I was like, it was 10th grade and it was right before like he would go to the nurse. He would go to the nurse every day at 11:15 because he had to go like take medicine or whatever. So he called me the F slur again and I was like, "Yeah, that's right, Chris. What do you want to know? I suck. I take it in the ass. Why do you care so much?" And he
Wow.
was like, "Dude, I'm like sorry." I was like, "Whatever. Go to the nurse and take your England. Like I don't want to hear it. I'm done with you." And he started to like run at me, and the English teacher stood between the both of us. And he was like, "What did you say?" I was like, "I know I didn't stutter." And so then he left, and then no one talked to me for the rest of the day. Like no one bullied me, no one said anything for the rest of the day. And then the next day, everyone like had a million questions for me. And that was why in 11th grade I started the Gay Straight Alliance. And then in 11th grade, I'm like tap at bookending my stories. So like
Okay.
um my mom was gonna get married and my dad had passed away when I was 11. And so
Sorry.
when my mom got remarried, the guy who she got remarried to, he presents very conservative. He's like a judge. He's a lawyer. He's very like buttoned up. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
like, oh great, my mom's already a widow. Does she need to be a divorcee too? Like I
Oh,
can't handle this.
oh
Like
my God.
what if this guy like hates gay people and then all of a sudden like it was like all this internal noise, like all this false evidence appearing real. And I told my mother 4 days before their wedding that I was
Okay.
gay because she was like, and actually it was her doing. This was her fault. So
Okay.
she I was like getting ready to go upstairs and I was like in my feelings and she was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "Nothing." And she was like, "Sit down." And I was, as a child, I was very obedient.
Okay.
She was like, "Sit down." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "We're going to talk about what's wrong with you." And I was like, "Well, we're going to be sitting here a while." And so we just sat there in silence for a little bit. And I remember I was sitting in the recliner and I was like rocking back and forth. And she was like, tell me what you're thinking. And I like very dramatically like worked myself up into a frenzy where I'm like crying and I was like, "I'm gay." And she was like, "I know." And she was like, she wasn't quite like duh, but she was like, "Yeah, okay." She was like, "That would never make me love you any less. It just makes me fearful for the people that are going to hate you without knowing you." She was like, "I
Wow.
love you no matter what." She goes, "But the only thing that this brings up for me is a fear of why people will now want to hurt you without knowing you." And I was like, "That's fair." And I remember we went and went to the kitchen and we ate vanilla ice cream like out of the container together. And it was a very sweet memory for me. So,
I love that, man. I think that's so cool right there. So like, so you didn't go through like a lot of bullying and stuff like that in high school. Maybe like a couple things or it was a
well,
lot.
no, in high school, I was tormented every day. Like
Really?
like, yeah, from fifth grade, because my family moved from Hoboken to a different town in New Jersey when I was in
Gotcha.
fourth grade. I finished fourth grade out where I was in a Catholic school and like we grew up together and
Oh,
everyone loved me and there was no issues there. I went to public
mm,
school and everyone had something to say to me about something. And like
really?
for the first time I was ever called gay, I was in fifth grade and I had no idea what that word even meant. Like I was like, what does that even mean? And so I remember back in the day before Google, I went online, like on America Online, and Googled on
Oh
like
God.
YouTube, right? Flashback with that like I was on YouTube and I was typing like, or not YouTube, I was on Yahoo and I was typing like, what does the word gay mean? And
Mm,
what fifth graders doing that? But I was like, what does the word gay mean? And it was like happy. And I was like, yes, I'm a happy person. I'm like, okay. But
okay.
then it's like underneath it, because you know how there's like multiple definitions that'll show up. It'll be like a person that has an affection for the same sex or like whatever. And I was like, oh, well, that's true too. Like I like boys. But it was never like a thought of like, this is bad or like, it was never thought of as bad until somebody else brought up to my attention that it was viewed as negative. Like once I was getting picked on for it, then I understood that it was something that I needed to like hide. But before that, it was
Okay.
never an issue.
Okay. So how old was you when you knew you liked boys? You think?
Mm, so like my first crush was in second grade on a boy on my baseball team.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. He's so cute. And he actually I didn't know this, but my stepdad was in his parents' wedding. Like when I was before like I even knew my stepdad. But like it
Okay.
was just really funny that I was like, "Oh, that's so full circle." Because I was telling him once, like, "Oh, I had a crush on this kid in my class," and he was like, "You know, I was in his parents' wedding," and I was like, "That's so funny."
I love this. I love this conversation. I'm not gonna lie. All right. So after high school, leading up to your retreats
Yeah.
and what you're into now, tell me what was the process after high school in your 20s? How was
So,
that right there? Because like you're growing up now, you're coming to your own, you're understanding yourself. Like tell me about that process.
so that was kind of interesting. In my early 20s, or like right after high school, I didn't want to go to college because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, "Mom, can I just be like a postman? That's all. I just want to like deliver
Okay.
mail." And
Wow. Okay.
she was like, "You can deliver mail after you get like an associate's degree."
Okay.
And I was like, okay. But also I hate being told what to do. So of course I dragged my feet and I made my college experience the most dramatic thing ever. At least at the beginning. Um, so I ended up my career between college and now was like at first I was working in nightclubs in New York City for a little bit. And then I went to college. I was doing that at the same time, like New York City nightlife and like my associate's degree. And then I was working at Foods for a little bit where I had just come back from working at Disney. And they were like, "You worked at Disney, so we're going to give you the job just because. Like, we trust that name." And I was like, "Okay." I worked there for a little bit, and then I met a woman. I was working in the whole body section, which is like all the body care and stuff. And
Yeah.
she was talking to me, and she was like, "Oh, I'm having friends over this weekend. I don't know what to do." And I was like, "Well, why don't you make like this food, and you can pre-make it, and then just before they get there, you pop it in the oven, and it makes the house smell really nice, and then they think that you've been cooking all day." And she was like, "Well, why don't you actually like come to my house and do that for me?" And I was like, "Okay." And so I started like lightly personal chefing. And one
Okay.
of the women at in the store with me was like, "Why don't you go to culinary school?" And I was like, "Yeah, why don't I?" I've always kind of just like leaned in. So
Okay.
I went to two culinary schools. I went to the Natural Gourmet Institute and the French Culinary Institute. And
Awesome.
um, was I did like I did personal chefing for about 5 years. Um, my last year was in California, where kind of like people got wild, and I don't want to say it fell apart, but like I came into some really dramatic things while that was happening.
Gotcha.
Um, and then I also had like exhausted my savings, and I was like an irresponsible 24-year-old. You know what I mean? Like I was not living my most informed, most like thought out life. And also growing up, I was lucky enough to really like never know what money problems were or anything like
Yeah.
that. But I was
Yeah.
also kept away from money in general. Like, so by the time I was an adult and like needed to know how to do money, I had no concept of what I was doing. You know what I mean? Like I was just
Wow.
kind of like shooting in the dark. And so then I my parents were like, just come back to New Jersey and you can go back to college for whatever you want. Because like I was like, I don't want to be an accountant. I don't want to do any of this boring stuff. Like,
Yeah.
and they were like, well, come back to New Jersey and you can like go back to school for whatever you want. And I was like, okay. So I came back to New Jersey. This is like another like maybe traumatic story moment, but
Okay.
it's worth it,
Shoot.
I guess.
Shoot.
Um, so after being back in New Jersey before going back to school, um, I was a raw foodist when I was in California, so like I was very healthy. Um, but then when I came back to New Jersey, I started eating the way my family eats, which is like we've owned restaurants for over 100 years. It's like big, like we're Italian, you know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
pasta and carbs and things like that. And I ended up getting sick, and I didn't know why.
Okay.
And I ended up like getting MRSA. I had to have my appendix out. It was like a bunch of really big stuff right in a row.
Damn. Shit.
And then um, when I had MRSA, I went to a dermatologist and they were like, you need to go see a different doctor for this. And I was like, but you're a skin doctor and this is a skin condition. And they were
Yeah.
like, they were like, we can express like one or two of them, but you need to go see like an infectious disease doctor. And I said,
Mm.
okay. So I went to the infectious disease doctor. Her name is Diana. She's amazing. She was wonderful to me. Um, And she was like, do you mind if I give you an HIV test? And I was like, no. I was like, because in my head, I'd only ever had sex with people that I was dating. And like, those were the rules. Like, you're only
Yeah.
supposed to have sex with people you date and
Yeah. Well,
stuff
that's what
like
they say. Yeah. Yeah.
that. And so in my head, there's no reason why anything would be amiss. You know what I mean? I was like, sure, go ahead, take as much blood as you want. Um, so
Mm.
there were a few instances where I had to go back to the doctor, but like my mom couldn't take me or my uncle had to take me or something. So like I think the doctor was essentially just buying time, like not giving me
Yeah.
answers when other people were there. So the last time I go, which was my third time, um, my mom was in the room with me, and the doctor
Mm.
comes in and she like opens a manila folder and just goes, bad news. And I was like, oh, okay. So like all of a sudden, like I was wearing a hooded sweatshirt and I got tunnel vision and I went deaf for a minute. And I was like,
Oh
what's
shit.
what's happening? And so then when I regained my ability to hear, um, my doctor was like, "Do you have any questions?" And I was like, "I want you to test me again." I didn't believe her. I was like in
Yeah. Yeah.
complete disbelief because I was like, "Wait, but I've only been with people I've dated. Like I've been in relationships with people. This is literally not supposed to be happening." So
Wow.
I was like, "Test me again," and she was like, "Okay." She was like, "But like." You really need to act on this soon. She was like, because it's like your health is really bad right now. And I was
Wow.
like, well, then test me quickly. I don't know what to tell you. So, um, so uh, she drew blood again, and I left. And on the way home with my mother, my mom goes, "So how do you feel about this?" And I said, "Well, maybe this happened because I meant to help somebody. And if I didn't have this happen to me, then I
Mm.
wouldn't be able to help that person." And my mother goes, "Only you." That was her response. Um, so then after the second test came back positive and the third test came back positive, um,
Wow.
I was like, okay, I guess this is a thing. Like, I guess this is a fucking thing. So, um, and then my doctor was like, yeah, you actually have AIDS right now. Like, I didn't even have HIV. I had full on AIDS because of how low my viral load or how high my viral load was and how low my T cells were and my CD4 count. So I like full on had AIDS.
Yeah.
Um, then I kind of got that under control thanks to like modern medication.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I'm undetectable, so that's great. But
That's awesome.
after that first year, I was like wiling out. I was just like, I remember just not even like that was a real liberating experience for me too, because I stopped caring what anyone else thought, like at all. Um, and then after that first year, like once I kind of got back into the swing of things, I went back to school for my undergraduate in art history and sculpture, which was like, I used to want to be a museum, like a gallery curator. And
Mm.
apparently those positions are like hyper sought after. They involve like,
Yeah.
you have to know like at least three languages, which I didn't. It was like a whole thing. So I was like, I'm not doing that. Um, and then I worked at a hotel for a while. I worked at the W before it was owned by Marriott.
Okay. But I mean to interrupt you. I want to go back to once you said. You said that after you got diagnosed with full blown, you said after a year you stopped caring.
Oh no,
Why?
like I stopped caring almost immediately what other
You,
people thought because I
okay,
was
so you stopped caring immediately, right? So why you think now you stop caring immediately?
um this lesson has come back to me several times throughout my life in different capacities, but
Yeah,
ultimately it's because the only person that knows my journey is me. Like the only
got
person that wakes up and goes to bed next to me every night is me. So
got
like the the external voices of other people and like what they thought I should do or like what I needed to be doing, I just completely lost all interest in. I was like, you know what? Like what is it that RuPaul says? Like, if they're not paying your bills, pay them no mind. And so,
I say that too. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah, so I'm like,
I say it too.
I have, I just lost interest in other people's opinion of me, and then I developed the opinion of like, your opinion of me is none of my business. Like, I don't care.
So let me ask you this, right? So do you think that was the pivotal moment in your life so far,
Mm,
or one of them?
I would say that was one of the pivotal moments in my life. I think that to that point in my life, that was the biggest thing I had ever dealt with, and I was like, wow, like this is wild. Um, and it also blindsided me because, like I said, I'd only ever been with people that I was dating. So I was like, that's not supposed to happen. Because I knew people from working in nightclubs and stuff that had slept with like hundreds of people and like never even gotten crabs. So I was very confused.
I'm confused with that one too. So let me ask you this. So after you went through that, when did you come up with the idea to get into? Matter of fact, now I'm gonna ask you this one because I actually got this one written down. I can do this now. All right. I want you to tell me about how you got into being a spiritual guide and how do you feel that helps other people? Like, when did you start that? And how did you come about that?
Yeah. So a lot of what I experienced growing up um, were like more traditional folk traditions, even though I was brought up
Got it.
Catholic, there was a
Yeah.
lot of like things that were just different, but also
Yeah.
um, were like just generally accepted in my
Got it.
family. And I was
Got it.
like, what is this? And anytime I would ask questions, people would be like, it's tradition. And I was like, okay. So I was just like, that never really sat right with me. And I knew that like when I went to Catholic church and Catholic school, that like that table was not set for me to sit at.
Got it.
I was like, I have to go find my own table. And so I looked for different traditions, different spiritualities, different forms of mysticism. And my exploration of that led me down this rabbit hole of self-exploration. And so I'm going to fast forward a little bit in the story past when I went to the W. I left the W. I went back to school for a master's degree in social work because I had been working with all these people that like had all the money in the world and were like the worst types of people sometimes. And then I was like, but I want to help people that need actual help, like that are in need. And so then I went and I got a master's degree in social work, and I was working in social work for like 6 years. And I realized that like not everyone that needs help wants help. And that was like a key for me.
True. Listen, do me a favor. Say that one more time because I want people to really understand that right there. Say that one more time.
Yeah. Not everyone that needs help wants help. And that's okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And so I left the field of social work because my last year in social work was during COVID. It was during the pandemic. And I was working in an emergency room at the time as the crisis social worker. So basically, like, I was dealing with a lot of people that were either A, trying to finish their lives early or like terminate themselves, or people that were getting really close to overdosing just so they could be hospitalized so they wouldn't be homeless. And that whole experience was just like too much for me. And I was like, this is emotionally draining. And I was in a relationship at the time with someone that was emotionally and psychologically abusive. So I was like, this is all too much. This is all too much. I need to do something else. So I didn't really have the inner strength to become a spiritual advisor at that time. So I went back to school for like a quick certification. It was like a 10-month program with like for computer network systems, because I've always been very good with computers. And I was like, these problems are small, they are manageable, they are solvable. I can do this. So I did that for 3 years. And during those 3 years, I did a lot of reflecting. And that's when I came to the idea that like my most pivotal experience to that point, other than being diagnosed with AIDS, was when I went on a retreat to Arizona. Like the retreat that I went on was super like inspiring, and it made me feel like this sense of oneness with humanity, not just like with other queer people, but with like humanity as a whole.
Yeah.
And I'd always had a deep love for humanity, even when sometimes I can't take people. Like I love
me either.
I love the human experience, even though like sometimes the people are a lot to deal with. And so then I was like, why don't I host retreats for people? That's what I want to do. And then that led me down like the rabbit hole of where I am now as like a wellness entrepreneur. I opened a nonprofit 2 years ago.
Yes, I was going to ask you. So is this I can't even pronounce it, the Haus of
H? Yeah.
Yeah. So what is that? And so I guess you started that from going to your retreat. And what is Project Pandora? What is that?
So the Haus of H is the nonprofit's name, and it is spelled like HAUS because fashion and gay. So why not?
Okay. I got you.
And then Project Pandora. A lot of people aren't familiar fully with the mythos and the legend of Pandora.
Yeah.
So it is a direct reference to Pandora's box, which actually in the legend was a jar, but that's a whole nother story.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that myself.
See? Doesn't get to escape is hope. And so that even in the darkest moments, even in the most challenging situations, there's always hope. And the concept for Project Pandora was the fact that like we are living in a post-AIDS crisis world. And yes, like AIDS and HIV is still a really big conversation, but there's like other things happening right now. But we are seeing our first generation of out queer elder people in a post-AIDS crisis world. Because before, queer people weren't really able to have a voice. And now, even though that's being challenged in certain places, we still, we have to take care of each other. And many queer people don't get to live the same heteronormative narrative as the majority of the population, where like straight people frequently get married, they live together, they have children, those children eventually take care of them as they age and stuff like that. Queer people aren't afforded that same opportunity because we don't always have children. Frequently, we are in jobs that are like a very go, go, go system. And also because when people know you're queer, they're less understanding about your need to like take off to take care of things. Because, I mean, you've probably not noticed this, or if you did notice it, it's probably different for you. Um,
Okay.
where like somebody's like, oh, I need to leave to pick up my kid from class or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I need to, but like queer people don't get that luxury of being able to leave because they have something to do because we don't have children. You know what I mean? And
yeah. I got you. I got
that's
you.
just like one of the things that affects us in a different way. And so
Joe, I'm sorry. So I'm gonna cut you. I'm gonna let you finish. But everything you just said right there, how does that make you feel?
it was really frustrating. But like that goes back to what my mother said when I was little, which is like if you see a problem but you don't see the solution, be the solution. So that was very much like the birth of what I decided to do. I was like, well, I'm gonna be a part of the solution to this problem because I clearly see it. And having been a social worker for almost a decade and being educated at a really prestigious school for that, I was like, I'm gonna be part of the solution. And that's what I did. I started the House of H. And people always are like, what does the H stand for? And for me, I say it's hope for humanity because I believe in like what we have here and I believe in what we're doing. So
Hopefully, I actually like that right there. And right, you started your nonprofit 2 years ago, right?
I started it 2 years ago. We're now just getting some traction. I don't know if you read the articles, but I've been written up in Business Insider, The Village Voice, Yahoo Finance, like a whole bunch of stuff. Um, and it's very gratifying to see it finally starting to like take shape and stuff. And that's why I host retreats now and I do all that.
Trust me, all your information will be in the description below when this comes out. I saw on your Instagram that you help people with breath breath techniques, like breathing.
Yeah, yeah,
Tell
yeah.
me about like how you yeah, tell me about how'd you learn that and why'd you do it? And I guess it's for like helping out people with anxiety and stuff like that. Like tell me about that.
So I'm gonna jump backwards in the story for a second. Um, I
Okay,
was
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was in IT at the time, and I was literally like in my bathroom, like sitting at my vanity, because I'm a gay and I have one of them. And I remember just kind of like
I love it.
being brought to my knees spiritually by something, by whatever divine presence you believe in.
Yeah.
And um, I remember just being like, I want to help people and I want to help people the way that I was helped. And the next day, um, I was like, I want to host retreats. I want to do that. And then the next day, literally, while I was sitting at my desk before work started, I was like scrolling on Instagram, and there was a thing that said like, um, become a become a breathwork facilitator and host retreats. And I was like, I want to host retreats. I don't know what this breathwork thing is, but I want to host retreats. And so I signed up
Okay.
for it and I went through this class and I learned so much about breathwork and how like breathwork helps to regulate the nervous system through taking you out of fight or flight and into the parasympathetic nervous system. And there's like a whole science behind how we can use breath to alkalize our bodies, to regulate the nervous system, to do a bunch of things that are really helpful, not only for mental health conditions. And of course, I'm not telling people to like not go to their doctors or not take their medicine or whatever, but I think that like when the real key is like the middle path for me. So like do the homeopathic stuff and also do the allopathic stuff. Like do both sides of it and then you're bound to like live a great successful life. And so um for me, breath work completely regulated my nervous system. It got me out of like the anxiety, depression stuff that I was feeling. And through coaching with the person that brought this into my world, I also like developed a sense of purpose. I knew what I wanted to do, and that's how I started my organization. Like it was a combination. It was kind of like a perfect storm of all this stuff. So
I love this, man. You explaining so much stuff right here to me, man. I got a couple more questions for you, but I got a real important one for you.
yeah.
What does the LGBTQ mean to you? What does that mean to you personally?
So that's interesting. And I'm gonna answer it. Need to like edit because
Okay.
I think that like I was really caught up when I was younger in like gayness as an identity. And like I was gay before I was myself. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And so eventually that faded and it became a part of me. And then I was like myself who was gay. Or like and then I realized, but
That's good.
like queerness is not just who you sleep with. It's also at times like a socio-political identity. And like any person that's ever been othered, like queer, anything, like anything that isn't the majority, in my
Yeah.
opinion, is like you've been othered. So like I was able to like my gayness or my queerness then became not necessarily who I was, but it shifted into a belief structure of equality and fighting for and advocating for people that are othered. So I like that's I said that I needed to like qualify that because I know earlier you said like no political conversation and I'm fine with that, but like this question is inherently political because of the
No,
context.
that one you can say. That one's staying in.
Okay. Yeah, and I
That's
think
staying.
whenever you have a group of people that's othered or marginalized for any reason, until
Yeah.
everyone has equality, there is no equality. And so my queerness is wrapped up in my advocacy for not only queer people, but for humanity. And that's what being queer is to me.
I love it. I want to let the audience know because a lot of people don't know. And every definition, lesbian. This is what they say: women attracted to other women. Gay, people attracted to the same gender, often men to men. Bisexual, attracted to two or more genders. Transgender, people who gender identified differs from the sex they were birthed with.
Mhm.
Intersex, which I did not know about this one. People born with sex characteristics that don't fit typical definitions of male or female. I did not know about that one.
Yeah.
And this one I did not know as well is asexual. People who do not experience sexual attraction. Did not know about that one. Now, I actually researched all that right there. So this leads me up to my next question for you. What are some misconceptions or stereotypes you think are in the LGBTQIA community?
Do you
In
mean,
your opinion only.
yeah, yeah. Do you mean like stereotypes that exist within the community and affect the community, or do you mean stereotypes that exist outside of the community that affect the way the community acts?
Well, I
Because
can tell you right now, which I did not. I'm glad you mentioned that because I heard this. There are stereotypes in the community, which I did not know.
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah. Now, so if you can break down a little bit on outside and inside.
Okay. So with I think the one that I'm about to mention is somewhat there's an overlap to it, but I think it's more prevalent in the external perception of the community. And I
Yeah.
think that that is that we are exclusively like who we sleep with. We are all like these deviants and like all of this stuff. There seems to be this like narrative that uh like we want to like get into people's bathrooms and like and infect and like all this stuff. And I'm
Oh
like,
my god.
what in the delusion are you experiencing? Like that has nothing to do with why I go into the restroom I go into to go to the bathroom. Like you know, like that's it's just ridiculous.
Oh
Um,
my god.
but I think that there's a lot of uh conversation around trans people right now,
Yeah.
and around like them like being confused. That's a narrative that you get around bisexuality too. Like they're confused, they don't know what they want.
Mhm.
But I think like as I said earlier, like the only person that knows your story is you, and the only person that knows how you live your life or how you authentically feel is you. So I think
Yes.
that people really feel like my grandmother used to say, opinions are like assholes, everyone's got one. But that doesn't mean
Facts.
I need to see yours. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't mean I need to experience your opinion or your like keep it to yourself. Um, but I think like for me, like because I also identify, like I said, as non-binary, like that's like an act of solidarity. Like anyone that is not like a cis white male, I think needs to really look at everyone else in the world as like, we're in this together. Like we are in this together. And like that's just my thought. Like if and even like even them, even like the cis males, we're all in it together, but they just need to soften. They just need to like not be
Yeah.
so caught up in this toxic culture of like I mean, but that's not the question you asked me. I completely got derailed. I'm sorry. But I think there's a lot of stereotypes about like who we are, what we do, who we sleep with, what we actually want from this experience. And I think a lot of it is very untrue. And I think that if you're just willing to have a conversation with a queer person, most of us are willing to answer. At least I know I'm always willing to answer questions about stuff because I think that the only way you combat ignorance is through education and kindness. And that's why I'm always super open about having had AIDS, having dealt with epilepsy growing up, coming from a mixed race family, all the things. So, like, I will always answer questions because questions combat ignorance. However, if I can tell that you're asking me questions to inflame me and not because you actually want to know, you will see a different side of me come out. So,
I I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. You know, I got one last question for you. I thought about this when I was doing research for everything like this and that, and I'm gonna ask you this question: do you feel healing is a lifelong journey?
yes, I think healing is a lifelong journey. I think that the invitation is there for everyone, but I also think it is not for everyone because when you are in a space of healing or like you're in a on a path where that's something you care about, like it's not always pretty. It's not always like the very aesthetic anthropology, like dresser in the middle of the woods. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's really ugly. And people have to be willing to look at the ugly parts of themselves and be honest with themselves. And I think that when that brings up questions about like who you were raised by, the
Mhm.
systems that you grew up in, and like stuff like that, that's hard for a lot of people. So, like, for me, I would love to help. I loved helping people dismantle from those systems and like
Mhm.
find out the voice that's truly coming through them, and like what their authentic feeling is and stuff like that, what their
Yeah,
authenticity is.
yeah,
But I'm not here for just like I don't know. I'm not here for someone who doesn't want to do the work and who's like I'm healed. Like that's not how that works. Because like no one's ever fully healed. The ego and all of that stuff just becomes more and more subtle, and you have to continue to like do the work and treat yourself with kindness and like all that stuff. And I will say that like gr- growing up in the family that I grew up in, they were very supportive until my belief structure and I varied from theirs like enough. And then
yeah,
I developed like healthy boundaries. And then the thing about boundaries is that they don't come with exceptions. Because when
yeah.
something's a true boundary for you, it's a boundary and no one crosses it. So, or at least that's how it works with me. And so, when my family all of a sudden discovered that I had boundaries and that they were testing them,
Oh
um,
boy.
that was also something that came into question as a conversation and as an area of personal growth that I never thought I would have to deal with. But
Okay.
like, as we move into our own becoming, depending on how you want to look at that, um, sometimes people and relationships shift and change.
I love this, man. You've been a great guest for me, man. I am not going to lie. You gave me a lot of insight, a lot of information. You're gonna give a lot of people a lot of information. All
Thank
this
you.
information will be in the descriptions below. For people on YouTube, please like, subscribe, comment, give a share out. Please share this episode. This is gonna be a damn good one. People on audio, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio. Oh yeah, I did forget. I'm sorry. When this comes out, this will be on Audible as well. Give this a download, share this out because we want this information and other stories, other topics, other journeys to be shared out as well. But we gonna have we gonna wind this down before I give you your last say. We gonna have a little fun. I'm gonna give you a little 5 question game that you know what I mean that you would like very, very much. Are you ready to play?
I am so ready.
I'm gonna give you a light question first. What is the weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
African snails. It was the most disgusting thing I've ever had.
Fuck is that?
Yeah, my one of my best friends, he came up to visit me in New York. He's from Florida, and he was like, "Let's go on an adventure today." And I was like, "Okay." And he was like, "I want to try Guyanese food." And I was like, "Okay." So we found a place in the city in like this little bodega, and he walked up and he was like, "Can you give me what like people that come here get a lot?" And it was this like green sludgy stew, and in it was a snail that was like literally the size of my fist. It was disgusting.
Oh, oh.
It was the most unpleasant thing I've ever eaten. So
Mm.
snails is my answer to that.
Okay, I'm going to recover from the answer. Um. Okay, let me ask you another one here. What moment in your life would you want to experience one more time?
um, wow, that one's a hard one.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
so I don't really believe in going backwards.
Okay.
Um, so I think that the moment that I maybe would want to experience again, I haven't lived yet.
You know what? Everybody asked that question. That was the best one. I've been waiting for somebody to say that shit. I am not lying to you. Thank you for saying that. I've asked that question to numerous guests. I was waiting for somebody to say that. Waiting for it. You're the first person. I love it.
Thanks.
All right. I got another one for you. What is one thing people misunderstand or misunderstood about you?
I think people misunderstand uh the gravity or the like intensity that I come with because I'm very funny and I'm great at creating levity in situations. And so
I know.
sometimes
See,
I'm dismissed as like silly or unintelligent. And I think that's a mistake that people make about me a lot.
I love it. I love it. I'm telling you, it's one of the best conversations I've had. I ain't gonna lie. What's a hidden talent no one knows about you?
I could put my fist in my mouth. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, I can, but that's not hidden.
Oh my God.
Uh, so I would say I'm really intuitive. That's like something that not everyone knows about me. I'm like I can pick up things about people sometimes that uh, just people would like. There have been times where I've answered questions before like people ask them, and people get really
Really?
freaked out by that. So
I would get freaked out by it too.
yeah, I was once standing across from somebody and I answered a question, and they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh, you just said this." And they were like, "I just thought that. I did not say that." And I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Well, that was the answer." And they were like, "Can you not do that again?" And I was like, "I'm sorry. Yeah." I was like, "I didn't do it on purpose. It just kind of happened." So that's something that people don't necessarily know about me all the time.
I love it. Last question for you. If past you could see present you now, what would they say?
Wow. I think they just wouldn't believe that I'm doing what I'm doing. Because for until just recently, even though I've always had a big personality, I've kind of kept my voice shrunk and small,
Mm.
because that's what I was brought up believing I had to do, kind of. And I think that younger me would never think that this version of me could exist. Like, I don't think they would have ever seen me as this empowered or this like self-actualized. So I think wow would be like all that my younger self could say.
I love it. I love it. I want you to give, I give every guest a final message. I want you to give a message to the audience out there. One final message about you, your journey, what you're doing now, and how it can affect other people that I guess who classify as queer, who you said that's like different.
Yeah.
Give that final message to them to
Um,
take us home.
okay. If you are feeling othered or feeling different or feeling like no one understands, it's okay. And in the future, people will understand. And also, maybe you don't need them to understand because maybe the fact that you're not understood is your superpower. So never let anyone take away your voice. Be true to yourself, be kind to others, and know that it's all love.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the best conversations I've had. I'm gonna say something here. Everybody may be different. Don't make a difference. What do we identify as? Um, Everybody has their own shit with them. Doesn't matter. I want to thank you for coming on today. You've opened up my eyes to some shit. And I hope that this opens up to a lot of people's eyes that we're all the same. It doesn't make a difference who we identify as or whatever. It doesn't make a damn difference. Because you know why we're all the same? Because we're all human beings.
And I think kind of we're all in this together. Like, no matter who you are or what you are, like, we're all just kind of experiencing this life from a million different perspectives. So why not just I think that you're always choosing between either fear or love. And I would much rather be in love with life than in fear of life. So choose love.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for us today. We will see you next week on Let's Talk About It. Have a good day, good week. Peace.